got Titan blood running through our veins. Get loud, put your hands up, let the whole world hear this sound.
What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Cass here, and I am along with Valente as normal for our prospects looks, and we are joined by the fullback fiend himself, Mr. David Miller. And
did you want me to say something?
yeah,
It's my bad. I fucked up the whole intro. That's my
no,
bad.
that we're good. We're good. We move, as they say. And I, along with Valente, have created our top 10 quarterbacks. We're gonna go through. We're gonna say what we think of these top 10 quarterbacks, and David can chime in when he feels like it. We want to get an outside perspective on some of our prospects and what we think. So
there's gonna be a lot of outside perspective, I'm assuming.
yeah, a lot of outside perspective from the fullback artiste. So let's go in with number 10, and that being Clayton Tune from the University of Houston, who stands in at 6'2", 220 pounds, and has a good release as well as a decent arm, and view was very well as well of the field as a passer. Didn't get a lot of looks at Clayton as much as some of the other guys on this list. But Houston has been competitive in their conference in... what conference are they in?
American.
The American Conference. They've been very competitive. And even before Clayton, but that's a whole different thing. But I could see this guy being a guy that goes into a team during camp, during the offseason, and tries to compete for a backup role. Has productivity as far as on that level in the American Conference, as well as being the average NFL quarterback size, 6'2", 220, around what you would look for normally out of a quarterback. David, do you have any problem with Clayton Tune being the 10th best quarterback in this class?
No, I don't disagree with him being here at 10. I have him as at 10 on my quarterback rankings as well. I will say, though, I do disagree with the arm comment and the seeing the field well comment. I think Tune's arm is pretty mediocre. He doesn't have a lot of juice behind it. He's not the type of guy that can really hit all levels of the field like you want a quarterback to be able to. And I don't think he sees the field that well. I think in terms of his post-snap processor, he's pretty slow, and it takes him a while to kind of read the field if he's even able to. But I will say, in his defense, a couple things that aren't listed here on the slide. I am impressed with his ability to navigate pressure, something that we're going to talk about, I'm sure, here with some of these other quarterbacks that don't do that quite as well. He's a good leader. He does have a quick release, and he's got solid experience at Houston, multi-year starter there, and he's pretty good at keeping his eyes downfield, I will say that, but he's just the type of quarterback that, much like Brock Purdy, like I've told you guys before, and I say this all the time, I don't love one-to-one comparisons, but I do think Brock Purdy's a good comparison here, because Tune is the kind of guy that's going to really lock into his first read. He's not going to let the ball rip unless a wide receiver is completely wide open. And at Houston, his productivity was really inflated by their offensive scheme that was pretty simple. And I do think his mechanics are pretty inconsistent as well. So he does actually stack up pretty well compared to Brock Purdy. So I don't know if he quite has that juice or that quirked up white boy magic that Purdy does, but I do see the comparison there. So Tune's fine. I think he's, like you said, a guy that's going to come in at camp and try to compete for a backup job. I don't see him as an NFL starter, unfortunately.
Is there any fictional comparison? That
No, I'd have to sit down and think on that one. I don't know. Just think of like
what's
any
the rabbit?
Spoiled rich kid character.
What's the rabbit from Kim Possible? There you go.
No, I'm thinking like you think of any spoiled rich kid character that doesn't really do a whole lot but gets everything handed down to him. and wins constantly, like a
Dave Bilzerian from Big Mouth.
Yeah, Dan Bilzerian. There we go.
I've never watched Big Mouth, so I can't attest to that. But sure,
Oh,
we'll run with it.
okay.
Yeah, Big Mouth's not my cup of tea, unfortunately.
Okay, we're gonna go on to number 9, and that being the guy that sent his team all the way to the national championship. Probably should have stayed at the house for that one. Comes in at 6'1", 207 pounds. Has a sturdy frame and a strong arm, typical of what you would see from Max Duggan if you turn on the footage. Looks like a complete quarterback build wise. Uses eyes to keep safeties at bay, which is something we didn't see in the national championship game. And his comp is quarterback Ryan Tannehill for the Tennessee Titans. And that shows through a lot of what I would say, as Valente would say, superhero football. And which is something I feel like when you cut
I
in,
called it hero ball.
when you cut in,
Playing from behind is when he's best.
when you
And
cut
that
in,
could be an issue.
when you cut in 20, especially last season, and I tempted to put the NFL comp as Los Angeles Chargers Ryan Tannehill game, because I think Max Duggan is the Ryan that we got against the Chargers. But yeah, David, do you have any problems with the Max Duggan slide that I have laid in front?
I wouldn't say I necessarily have any problems with it. I do have him one spot higher on my rankings. I have him at 8 instead of 9. But I do agree with your points, and I think if we were to give Duggan a comparison NFL-wise, I don't have a fictional comp offhand, unfortunately. But NFL-wise, I think the best way to describe him is like if Taylor Heineke had Josh Allen's mentality, which he kind of does, but like amped up to 10, because he's the type of guy that doesn't have the super consistent accuracy or footwork or mechanics, and he can't handle pressure that well, holds the ball a little bit too long, and he's just overall erratic. But he has the ability to take the top off the defense and really, stretch the field, hit deep shots, which he is more than willing to take. And obviously, like you said, he has the ability to look off safeties at certain moments. So I do think the concept of him being better when he's playing hero ball, like Valente said, makes a lot more sense and kind of leans into that Taylor Heineke-esque vibe. Again, another quirked up white boy with a little bit of magic that is able to make something
I was
happen out of
just
nothing.
about to say, while we were sitting here and you were talking about this, 2 more comparisons popped in my head, and I'll say them for whoever's watching this. Ryan Fitzpatrick and Taylor Heineke are really 2 good ones as well. But I try to stay away from like people that aren't in the league anymore. So at least for the quarterbacks one, I try to do that. I know in the running backs prospect video, I think we did do a couple of guys that are retired. I'm not sure, but
not Matt Collins, Alex Collins.
Yeah, we did Alex
He's retired,
Collins.
isn't he?
Or he's not on a roster. I know that. But anyway,
if you squint your eyes hard enough, you can see Andy Dalton. No, okay.
All right, and we're gonna go ahead and go to 8. Who I have the 2-time national championship quarterback. Let me throw that in here. Can I get him drafted? Stetson Bennett from the University of Georgia, who comes in at 5'11", 192, who excels with a quick release and a mind for the game, as said once by Georgia coach Kirby Smart when describing Stetson Bennett. He has a mind for the game, who excels with quick thinking and a smart mind. NFL comp is also, I believe, former Georgia quarterback Nick Mullins. Any problem with this slide, Valente, David?
I'd have to say it's pretty accurate in terms of quick release, quick thinking. Smart mind is a little bit on the wild side. I don't know if you've seen what happened recently after the national championship. I don't know. That's not very smart thinking. And when I look at Stetson Bennett, I just think of SAT. So I don't know. Maybe smart mind. Smart mind's a little on the mixed side for me because when I see Stetson Bennett, I think of SAT, but when I see him, I also think of DUI.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with anything you have listed here. Stetson Bennett, for the most part, is pretty polished as a passer. He's really good at avoiding pressure. He's deceptively elusive. He can move a little bit. He's pretty accurate. He's a natural leader on the field. He's got that quick release, like you said. He's tough. He's poised in the pocket, and he's got like a never say die attitude. If he's behind, he's never out of a game. He's the type of guy that's never going to give up. But his 5'11", 190-pound frame is just too small for an NFL quarterback. There's no way he could survive the a long term starting job. And he's also not the most accurate downfield. He's a little conservative. Kind of gives me that pre 2021, pre Kevin O'Connell, Kirk Cousins vibes, where he's a check down merchant. He likes the ball. To just get rid of it quickly. And he's also not super willing when it comes to setting his feet. So I don't know. I have him a little bit lower than you guys do. I actually have him and Dugan switched on my quarterback rankings for 8 and 9, but it's not too far off.
I was
Something that
actually.
just came to my
Oh,
head.
go ahead.
I'm kind of being the funny one here, but or trying to be at least. But the first thing that came to my head while explaining that was Stetson Bennett's probably the guy that you would put in 40 games into an 82 game season.
I could see
I,
that.
yeah, I feel like once all the power is out of the out of the big guys in the trenches, I feel like Stetson Bennett's the guy to kind of take over at quarterback because he won't get hit much. I mean, you're 40 games into a season. I feel like if he gets hit, you know, with the way that players are still rough, despite the rules, roughing the passer penalties and all that, I feel like, you still see some players land on quarterbacks with their full weight. I
Hmm.
feel like if that happens to Stetson, then it's kind of game over for a while.
Yeah. I think, if you want to throw out a fictional comp here, Stetson Bennett, I kind of relate to his size and that never say die attitude. That persistence and resilience kind of reminds me a little bit of Nemo in that way, where he's just a little guy trying his best, and you know yeah,
Nemo.
yeah, he gives
You
me
know,
Nemo vibes. I don't know,
I
maybe
have a
he's not
fictional
quite
comp
as.
for him.
Oh goodness, shoot.
Um, my fictional comp for him is Ned from Ned's Disclassified.
Ned from Ned's Declassified. I see it. I see it. No, I see the vision with that. I actually really like that.
I was gonna say
He's,
Drake,
From
but
what? Drake and Josh?
from
no,
no,
no, he's
no Drake from Ned Disclassified.
Oh,
But then I figured I kind of wanted to stay with the smart theme, and I
yeah,
feel like
okay.
yeah. No,
Ned's
I
the
mean, yeah, he's. I don't know though, because I feel like Ned and Stetson kind of have their smarts flipped because Stetson clearly seems to be football smart, but not very common sense smart, whereas Ned isn't the
both smart
smartest
though.
student, yet he's very what would be street smart technically in school, so like common sense smart, so to speak. So I mean, I see the vision, but I do think their smarts are kind of flip flopped.
Yeah, he's smart in his own way.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
not
mean,
like
if you want to look
it's
at
not
it,
like
maybe
you're
I'm going
gonna
too specific with it. Maybe that's
it's
the
not like you're
problem.
gonna rate Lamar Jackson the Flash, but he can't go 345 miles an hour.
Right,
You know,
right. Okay, fair. Yeah, I don't know. I get a little specific with my comps sometimes. So yeah,
always.
yeah. Ned definitely works. I like it.
Okay. Well, I also was gonna ask you this, David. So, let's
Hmm.
say if you put Stetson Bennett's career, his career at Georgia, right,
Hmm.
and you put that in somebody's frame, say say Stetson was 6'2", 210. Do you think he gets drafted in the first round?
I don't know about first round. I think his what was it here? His accuracy downfield, the character concerns, and his conservativeness would probably keep him in the second or third round. I think we'd be talking more along the lines of like more between the first round quarterbacks and Tanner McKee, so to speak. Would probably be where he'd land. But I think he could be a guy that would start in the NFL, maybe bounce around as a journeyman quarterback. I don't think he. Plus, his age is an issue. Obviously, he's what 25, I think.
Yeah,
And another
26.
thing,
26.
He'll be
26.
26 whenever
Yeah, there you
draft
go.
the
happens.
first NFL game
See,
starts.
that's even worse, you know. And I also
Yeah.
forgot to mention, I was looking at my notes again. Dude has no zip to his throws, like none. And that's something that nowadays I don't think teams are going to be willing to look at a quarterback that can't put any zip on his throws, isn't conservative, doesn't like to attack downfield, and is 26 already, and think maybe he's our guy. I think he would still be more of a day 2, maybe early day 3 pick, even if he was a little bit bigger. But I would have more confidence in him eventually starting somewhere if he was a little bit bigger.
This is my thing though, is I think with the amount of like how big, say a SEC, like how big the SEC conference is, like in where the conference is held in the Southern United States.
Uh-huh.
Stinson's always gonna, like, especially in Georgia, as like, speaking of how people, like, I live very close to uh Georgia, like right around like the line and stuff.
Right.
The way people talk about Stinson is makes me seem like people always will like, dude will never struggle to pay for anything in Athens. Let me just throw that in.
Well,
And it's very
yeah, I mean,
Georgia, really.
it's very
I'm
similar.
sure he's a hometown hero at this point, winning the national championship for him and everything.
Very similar to a Cam Newton in Auburn and stuff like that. So
Right. The difference is Cam Newton, if he wouldn't have dealt with the injury issues and whatnot, could have been a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL.
yeah. So let's go ahead into number 7 and hope this BYU quarterback works out. And that being quarterback Jaron Hall, because we know the few past ones haven't been too great. 6 foot, 207. Natural athlete and patient inside the pocket. My comp is Ravens backup quarterback now, but Lamar is on the block. Ravens backup quarterback, former Oregon quarterback, Anthony Brown.
You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that I'm gonna switch. Oh, I was gonna switch the NFL comp to another BYU quarterback. No, not Zach Wilson, and I wouldn't even consider this guy a quarterback. If Taysom Hill was a better passer, I would say Taysom Hill is his comp. But
I like
on
that
the
a lot more
athletic
than Anthony
side,
Brown.
I can see the Taysom Hill. But on the passing side, I can see a little bit more of a. I didn't really think about that, but on the athletic side, I see more of a Taysom Hill than Anthony Brown. I feel like I don't think anyone should be compared to Anthony Brown.
I was gonna say I feel like Anthony Brown is underselling Jaron Hall a little bit. I've gone on record saying before that Jaron Hall is my favorite quarterback in this class. Not necessarily the best, but the one I like the most. I think there's a lot to like with Jaron Hall, apart from his age. Obviously, he'll be 25. I think by the time this. Oh, no, he's already 25. He turned 25 on either the 23rd or 24th of March. So obviously, not ideal. And his injury history is a little iffy. He dealt with a couple big injuries in college, and he's a little bit small, and his accuracy isn't always there. As a whole, I mean, his ability to throw on the run and throw with juice off platform are both incredible. He's a super creative quarterback. He's able to throw with touch pretty consistently downfield. He's really, really accurate outside the numbers, something that really stood out to me, as well as flashes of spatial awareness there as a passer. He played baseball, which helps a lot with his ability to throw from different angles, something he's able to do at a high level as well. He's made a lot of really, really nice throws with linemen, in his lap. Like he's a great under pressure. He's super dynamic, A+ character, just a great, great kid, and he works through his reads pretty quickly. I'm a big, big fan of Jaron Hall, and if he wasn't so old. If he was 22, 23 years old, because that's going to be the big thing with him. He wouldn't be a quarterback that you can start day one. You got to get that little bit of polish, with him. But with the physical traits he has, with the character upside he has, with the determination, the hard work, the athletic background that he has, he's somebody that really could have high potential in the NFL. But being 25, he doesn't have that room to grow like some of these other quarterbacks are going to have. If you're a 25-year-old quarterback prospect, you better be ready to come in day one and start. And that's just not Jaron Hall, so that holds him back a lot. But again, if he was 22, 23 years old, he'd be one of the four best quarterbacks in this class pretty easily, in my opinion. It's just unfortunate with the age thing.
It makes you
Yeah,
think. Oh, good.
I feel like he's the only guy that's really complete, but the age is kind of,
Well, I don't think he's
throwing
quite
that
complete.
off.
I think that's pushing it a little bit, but he's pretty damn close to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's got very little weakness, or
Yeah,
weaknesses that can be fixed,
right, right.
easily.
Yeah, he's up there with Young and Stroud in terms of border,
Skill.
in terms of how close they are to being there. Him, Young, and Stroud, I say would probably have. Oh no, I'd throw Levis in there as well. Those four probably have the highest floors out of the quarterbacks in this class. It's like I said though, it's the age is just super super unfortunate.
Which
I do
makes.
have a
Okay,
I
go
have a
ahead.
fictional comp for Hall as well if you'd like to hear that.
Yeah, go
This
ahead.
is one of yeah. So I actually wrote an article about Hall, and at the end of it, I compared him to Yoda from Star Wars, and I'm pretty proud of that comparison because he's a little bit on the older side. He's a little guy, but he's got that juice. He's able to bounce around and do some damage, and he's real smart, real creative. So I think he compares pretty well to Yoda.
All right. Well, may the force be with him wherever he gets drafted. So,
For sure.
hope it ain't New York.
God, imagine.
All
No, he'll be a solid backup somewhere.
right. And now we go into Davis Mills 2.0 at number 6 with Tanner McKee from Stanford. 6'6". Davis Mills 6'5". 231. I wonder who was around that size. He has great size for an NFL quarterback. I see that I put great NFL arm and smart NFL eyes on here. I would actually, now looking at it and thinking more about it, put more of above average, not great. I would put above average NFL arm,
Mm-hmm.
but I still think he does have a good view of the field, and which is very productivity, very on pace with Stanford quarterbacks. Andrew Luck, Davis Mills, and now Tanner.
Yeah, it's from Stanford, man. He's smart. Smart. He knows how to learn.
Got a big neck, just like David.
I
Davis.
was gonna say I don't think I have that big of a neck, but all right.
Maybe that's what Andrew Luck was
Yeah,
hiding under his beard.
he learned the trick. All Stanford quarterbacks have big necks. Luck learned how to hide it. I do not like Tanner McKee. He's just such a boring quarterback. Like, I'm an old school football fan. I respect some old school football. But one trait I do not miss is these quarterbacks that do nothing but stand straight up in the pocket, man. Like, you got to be able to have some mobility. All the greats had at least a little bit of mobility. And Tanner McKee is just not a guy that's like that. I mean, he is a straight up statue in the pocket. And I'm not sure how many NFL teams are really going to be interested in that in today's game and age. And
Does it have any
his
impact?
accuracy.
Oh,
Hmm?
sorry to interrupt. Does it have any
No,
impact
go ahead.
that one of the greatest of all time didn't move around a lot in the pocket? The greatest of all time didn't move around a lot in the pocket?
Well, the difference between him and Brady is the fact that Brady is one of the smartest NFL quarterbacks of all time, could read a defense, had a solid arm, et cetera, et cetera. Like he had everything else was perfect. It was just that he couldn't move. Tanner McKee is far from that. Uh, Plus, nowadays you're just teams are just not looking for quarterbacks that can't move. That's the
I actually agree with
reality
that
of the
heavily.
situation.
Yeah. I
Teams
feel
are
like
not. they don't want a quarterback that's going to sit there in the pocket and not be able to do anything. They want guys that can get outside of the pockets, they can sell the run game with play action, and be able to create outside of the pocket. And Tanner McKee's never going to be that. He's stiff. His feet are slow. He can't do anything outside of structure. Like he is the stereotypical product of an RPO system. That is exactly what Tanner McKee is. And when you factor in that and the fact that he takes way too many unnecessary sacks, I just don't see the appeal here. Like, sure, he's big, he's got an okay arm, okay processor, he's his ball security is pretty all right, and he's got like a baseline ability to identify coverages, but he just screams mid backup. That's what Tanner McKee is to me. He's just not a fun. This is the backup quarterback that you get, and when your starting quarterback goes down, fans groan not because, or not just because it's such a downgrade in terms of talent, but because it's not going to be enjoyable football. It's going to be a two-step drop, throw it to the flat, throw it to a slant, and move on. Like it's not good football. It's not fun football. It's just boring, and that's what Tanner McKee is. He's just
So
a
like Joe
boring,
Flacco with the
boring
Jets.
quarterback.
Like
Yeah,
one
yeah.
thing,
Actually, very similar to Joe Flacco with the Jets. Except he's not gonna make big plays like Flacco could here and there.
Do you think
yeah,
the
one thing
comparison
that
to Davis is like completely out? Like, do you think it's not a good
No, I
comparison?
think it's fairly accurate. Again, I don't like the 1-to-1 comparisons, but I see the vision on this one for sure.
And
one
also,
thing that I was gonna say
yeah, go
about
ahead.
Tanner is I feel like us as fans, and even some coaches, scouts, have been so spoiled with the new style of everyone has at least a little bit of wheels on them that seeing someone like Tanner McKee, who is a statue, like you said, is um kind of like underwhelming. Like
When you
the
have
the
Yeah,
when
skill
for
the skill
sure.
is there, the skill is there, but it's kind of like you're not a top guy, you're middle of the pack, and you don't possess all of these other attributes that Jaron Halls, Stetson, Max, all these other guys, they have, you know, a decent bit of
mobility,
mobility, yeah, a decent bit of mobility on them. Everybody in this top 10 list has a decent bit of mobility on them,
except Tanner.
except Tanner. So you see
Yeah.
Tanner in the middle of the pack, and he's got everything. We've all been spoiled with a new style of quarterback.
Yeah. Now, I will say, again, as someone who is a fan of traditional football, if Tanner had everything else figured out, I think I'd still be able to be a fan, but he doesn't. He's he's got just as many issues in terms of reading the field and dissecting coverages and making reads as these other quarterbacks. He just doesn't have the added benefit of being able to create with his legs and get outside of the pocket and be creative and just do fun stuff. So he is by far my least favorite quarterback in this class. Not the worst, but definitely my least favorite.
Right. Let's go ahead and go to 5. We're going to be right at the middle point of the slides. So 5 is Kentucky quarterback Will Levis. So 6'3", 229, 230, varying reports on that. So it's the only quarterback where there wasn't a solid number, but it's only a pound difference, so it doesn't really matter. Strongest arm in the class, in my opinion, from what I've seen, he possesses the strongest arm in the class, which gives him reason to be a very confident passer, and something that sometimes strong arm quarterbacks struggle with, at least early on, is being also a accurate passer, uh, mediocre, like during medial lines of the field. So like short to mediate areas of the field, he's very accurate with that, while having the arm to test you deep as well. And the NFL comp, funny again, is Ryan Tannehill. So yeah,
Yeah. I have I have a lot of held in my heart. That was a tongue twister. I was literally preparing on how to say that for the past 2 minutes, but I have a lot of hate held in my heart for Will Levis. I am a Louisville fan. I don't like Will Levis, but me being a Louisville fan actually allows me to have some time to actually watch Will Levis because I have people in my family that like Kentucky. So as a football watcher, you gotta kind of get the chance to watch everybody. Will Levis more than anybody else. I like the comparison of Ryan Tannehill because I feel like while and the reason I like Tannehill is because I feel like this past season kind of exposed him a little bit, considering this was a bit of a fall off from his 2021 season. His 2021 season was my favorite. I feel like he could have, if the 2021 season determined the rankings, he could have probably been the second best quarterback. But this last season kind of really like poisoned me, and it just made me realize that I feel like, and this might sound stupid, but people might understand. I feel like he doesn't improve a team. I feel like a team improves him.
That
I don't know if that makes sense,
that is
but
a
for example,
totally fair statement when you
like a
understand.
J- like a Jalen Hurts situation. Jalen Hurts is really good, and Jalen Hurts I feel like didn't reach his full potential until AJ Brown was there, until um the secondary was lit. I feel like the secondary has nothing to do with Jalen Hurts' play, but I feel like Jalen Hurts didn't reach his full potential until AJ was there, and kind of opposite for Will Levis. His season kind of took a hit whenever he lost his receivers. His running back isn't, you know, really involved, I guess you could say, as much because I think he was suspended for 2 games, if I remember, for DUIs again.
Typical college
Um,
students.
but like Ryan Tannehill, given the right system, he could be good. I just think if you throw him into, let's say he gets mocked to Indiana,
You mean
you
Indianapolis?
send him to the Indianapolis Colts, he's gonna flop. You gotta send him somewhere good. That's just my kind of understanding of how Will Levis
You're gonna
works.
get some love comments on this video for saying the Colts suck. By the way, just gonna throw that one out there. David, you got anything to put on
Colts
the Will
offensive
Levis
system
slide?
isn't.
Yeah, I just want to say I think you two are a little low on Will Levis. I think Will Levis is an incredibly impressive quarterback prospect. I don't think he has the strongest arm in the class. I should say. We'll talk about who has the strongest arm in the class here in a little bit, but his arm is incredibly impressive. His passes have a lot of zip. He has a really high ceiling, in my opinion. He's mostly accurate. His footwork's good. He's got a quick release. He's good size for a quarterback, solid athlete. And then he played in two different pro style offenses, at Kentucky, and was able to, execute pretty solidly in both. And that's something that a lot of teams are going to look at and feel a lot of confidence in. Uh, Now, I will say his pocket presence is a little iffy. His decision making, both on and off the field, apparently isn't the best.
No, no,
And
no, no,
he,
no, 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 no. Not off the field. I'm talking about Chris Rodriguez as running back. His team
oh,
last year was
I
pretty
see, I
bad, and
see.
that
My
kind of
apologies.
exposed him for me.
My apologies. Yeah, so his decision making on the field, as a whole, isn't the greatest. But we see quarterbacks in the NFL be able to thrive with that gunslinger mentality, so to speak, that Will Levis seems to possess. And his ball placement can be a little bit high at times. But overall, I think Will Levis is probably one of two of the top quarterbacks that you could confidently start day one. I don't think Levis is a guy that needs to be in the perfect situation like some of these other quarterbacks do. And obviously, you want a rookie quarterback to be in the best situation possible. But if you send him to Indianapolis, where their wide receiver core isn't the worst, Jelani Woods is on the come up. They've got Michael Pittman, who's a pretty solid receiver. They have the ability to add receiving talent. They've got Jonathan Taylor, who can take a lot of the pressure off of him. They've got a great young head coach that knows how to develop quarterbacks in Shane Steichen. Like I think Will Levis to Indianapolis would actually be a really solid fit, and I think that Will Levis is one of the four best quarterbacks in this class. I think it's little disrespectful that y'all got him here at 5, but I'm a fan, and I do like the Tannehill comp. Although I will say I lean more towards young Ryan Tannehill for Will Levis, looking more like when he first came in for Tennessee and was like the savior of the team, or when he was hot in Miami before he kind of fell off there. Like that's more the Ryan Tannehill I see in Will Levis than the modern game manager check down merchant, pretty much there to hand the ball off Ryan Tannehill, which is who was the
That's
other
the Tannehill
quarterback
I
that
was
got that
talking
comp
about.
from you?
Max Duggan.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think Will Levis is more of the good in Tannehill than Max Dugan is.
Basically, the 2020 Tannehill.
Pretty much,
2019.
yeah.
But yeah.
2019, 2020, whatever year it
2019,
was.
yeah, whatever. But yeah, see, I could be being a little harsh because I hate Will Levis, but
Well, I
I
mean, I
just
get
hate
I
him.
get that
I hate him
that
by association. Like, if you're a
yeah, I
blood,
get
you're
that.
gonna hate all the Crips. But you know,
I get that.
uh,
And I will say there is some cause for concern with his tape. You watch him in 2021, and like Valente said, he looks like one of the better quarterbacks in this class, and then 2022, he wasn't. But with all the variables against him in 2022, I think it's pretty safe to bank on 2021 Levis being the guy that you're going to get long term.
And I am going to say that I went back and forth with like three. No, the guy that we have is two in some board, like some like pre verbs of this was three. And I went back and forth switching 3, 4, and 5 on multiple difference before I finally settled on this one being the one that I went with. But the guy that is 2 was gonna be 3, and then 3, 4, and 5 were gonna be interchangeable in whichever way we went with this.
Interesting.
So as you see this, when we'll get to that. But anyway, I think you could easily say in the way we're looking at this that Levis could be 3 on here as well as depending on how it goes. But I actually, where you say like it's kind of disrespectful to put Will Levis at 5, I actually like Levis a lot. But it's just one, the guy we're about to get to, and that being Hendon Hooker, who I just switched over to. I think played very well, well enough to earn him some shine, which is why I put him at 4. Even though I think Levis is a better quarterback, I think Hendon was better in the big game situations. Like for example, when Levis and Kentucky had a chance to, I believe they were undefeated, and it was the year that he was doing really well with Kentucky, not last season, the year before. And they had
I think they were like 8-0.
and they had a big chance to go in to Athens and beat Georgia the year Georgia won the national championship. And Levis did not play well in that game. Valid against a very good Georgia defense. That's very valid. A defense that gave a lot of draft picks. That's very valid. But then Hendon Hooker played an Alabama team and beat them. And then very fair as well that he got injured towards the end of the season, couldn't finish the storybook season that was going on in Knoxville. But I think the big game ability of Hendon Hooker, understanding that how old he is, understanding that he's an older quarterback as well, but the high character, the big game situations, I think Hendon Hooker, that gives me the reason to put him above Levis.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
I can't get behind it personally. Sorry, Valente, you can go ahead. I fucked up the order there.
Specific. There ain't really any order, but specific game that comes to mind. For Levis actually, that kind of just came to me was the game against Vanderbilt last year. He completely folded. Clutch situation. He had clutch situation like twice and folded both times. The entire game was just a complete fold by him. But anyway, to Hendon, I like the comp with Desmond Ritter because again, shout out to the city. I like watching Desmond Ritter. Um, Falcons player. I hate him for being on the Falcons, but I love him from being for the city. But I like the idea of Desmond Ritter being the comp because again, perfect size. Desmond Ritter's got. I wouldn't say he's got the wheels. He doesn't possess the. I'd say he's in between Lamar Jackson and if there's a median between Lamar Jackson and uh, Jameis Winston, he's that. That I couldn't think of a bottom, but
So Desmond Ritter.
Yeah, Desmond Ritter, exactly. Desmond Ritter is the median of Jameis Winston and Lamar Jackson in terms of wheels. I feel like Hendon. I think the ACL will affect some things because,
Mhm.
like everybody who gets an ACL injury, mobility is an issue for probably the first month that you're back playing on it. Like Joe Burrow, um,
Mhm.
in the 2021 season, you didn't really see him move around a lot. You saw him take a lot more punishment because
That's very fair. That's
stiff.
very
The movement was kind of. I wouldn't say stiff, but it was very rare to see him move. And when he did move, it was um stiff. Yeah, I guess stiff is a good word for it.
Mhm.
But I think that if he can recover from the ACL completely before actually being put in game situations, I feel like Hendon can have a really huge upside. But another thing that, like similar to Levis, I feel like Hendon being in Tennessee. Well, I was gonna say Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt, but were they really anything before Hendon? I feel like
I couldn't tell you.
the
I don't follow
Alabama
college football
game.
like that.
I feel like the Alabama game really built up the Jalen Hyatt stock right then and there. Kind of put Jalen Hyatt on the map, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. For me, the big thing with Hooker, as we've mentioned, I believe he's another quarterback that'll be 26 by
uh
week
huh.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he'll
And
actually
coming
be
up,
26 in on opening day, I think.
yeah. So 26, torn ACL, terrible, terrible pocket presence. I mean, he has no feel for pressure. He
Yeah,
played in an offense that will not translate to the NFL. He's going to have to
Very
completely learn an
simplified
offensive
offense.
scheme. Right.
yeah,
He's not the most accurate guy in the world. Bails from clean pockets constantly. He's flat footed. He doesn't keep his head up when he's running the ball. And his mechanics are incredibly sloppy on the run. Like, Hooker's a fine prospect, but he doesn't. He his skill set and his negatives, so to speak, really really worry me. And to have this guy, in your top four, I think is pushing a little bit. Putting him above Levis is really really getting to me, just because I don't see the projection for a quarterback that's his age coming off of his injury with these types of weaknesses. Like, I know the big wigs are starting to project him in the first round because NFL teams are high on it, and high on him, and I just don't get it. I really don't. Like, sure, he's got a solid deep ball. His arm's more than capable, and he's able to avoid pressure when he feels it, which is very very rare, and he doesn't hold on to the ball very long. But to me, at best, you're looking at like Dollar General Dak Prescott. This guy is not a great NFL quarterback in the making, in my opinion, whereas Will Levis absolutely can be, or Bryce Young, or Anthony Richardson, or CJ Stroud. It's like, I don't know, he's more in the Jaron Hall tier. And even then, I struggle putting him above Hall, but I typically do. It's just I don't see it. I really don't.
and one thing that came to my mind just a second ago about that is, like Tanner McKee, he's a complete statue, but he has wheels. And the thing about Hendon is that he's so predictable, because
Right.
if you see him drop back and he stands there, you know damn well he's not gonna move. He's gonna stand in the pocket, and he's just gonna look for his receivers in the pocket. But
Mhm.
if you see him rolling out, he's gonna run. He's so predictable. There's
Yeah, because the
no
mechanics on the
variety
run
in
are
his game
horrid.
really.
Yeah,
It-
I, I mean, it's just he's such a weird quarterback in that way, because you'd think, a guy that's able to move, he'd be able to do something in the pocket, but he has no sense to be able to step up in the pocket or step away from pressure. It's just as soon as he sees that first domino fall up front or starts to feel any sort of pressure or blitz, he's gone. He's not going to sit in the pocket and try to make a throw or try to manipulate the pocket at all. It's pretty brutal.
But I'm gonna throw in this will probably make you feel a little bit better, David. There was a draft of this slideshow that had Levis at, oh, where I think it had Levis at 3, Stroud at 4, and Hendon at 5 or
Okay, see,
something.
I don't love that either necessarily, but it's a little bit better.
But anyway, let's go ahead and get into Bryce, who um Valente was adamant at not putting in the top 2.
That's crazy.
I was adamant in not putting him at number 1. I didn't say top 2.
That's
No,
wild.
you said that you thought that C.J. Stroud was better than Bryce. I think Anthony Richardson is
Yeah.
better than both of them. So that what keeps Bryce out of being in the top 2.
Higher ceiling, but way lower floor in my eyes.
But anyway, Bryce stands in at 5'10", 200 lbs, is quick-footed, and throws with straight line speed. And this is my favorite. This and our number 1 are my favorite comps. The NFL comp is Russell Wilson. David, you got anything to add on Bryce Young?
Let Valente go first.
Okay.
Is the NFL comparison Russ because of size?
No, the NFL comparison is Russell Wilson. 1, because I think their mechanics are very similar. The size does feature into that, and plus, I think their NFL careers will be very similar. Bryce will overcome his size and be a very good NFL quarterback.
And see, I don't hate Bryce. I just don't think Bryce is the number 1 quarterback. That 5'10", I don't think I remember a quarterback in my time that was 5'10" and
Kyler Murray's a
successful.
starter, and he's not shy off of 5'10".
Wait, who?
Kyler Murray's a starter, and he's not shy off of 5'10".
Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't know if I would consider Kyler Murray super successful, though.
Fair.
Yeah, see, I find it incredibly hard to compare to Bryce Young to any of the other small NFL quarterbacks, because like I see where you're coming from with Russ, but he doesn't have the arm talent that Russ does. He's not going to be able to hit a pass 60 yards down the field outside of the numbers like Russ does, which allows him to make up for his height.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't have the mobility that Kyler does, where Kyler can run the ball like a running back at times, right? Bryce doesn't have either of those, but I think as a prospect, he's better than both. Because truthfully, if you were to pull out an NFL comparison for Bryce, I see more Mahomes in his game than anybody else. A bite-sized Mahomes would be my NFL comp if I had to give one to Bryce Young, because this guy is incredibly creative. I mean, once he gets outside of the pocket, he can make absolute beautiful magic happen.
Before
Pre-snap processing.
go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say his pre-snap processing is a 10 out of 10. He can throw with anticipation at an NFL level, which is very rare for a college prospect coming out. He's great at communicating with his offensive line, goes through his progressions incredibly well. His footwork and mechanics are both great. His pocket presence and poise are great. He handles pressure very well. He can evade sacks, super patient. He understands when a play is dead and he needs to just get out and, make something happen. His release is quick. His reaction time is quick. He's efficient in the red zone. Like, genuinely speaking, the only things that are wrong with this guy is that he's undersized and he doesn't have an elite NFL arm. He's going to be able to make pretty much any throw on the field, but he's not Josh Allen. He's not Mahomes. He's not Herbert. He's not, whoever else you want to say, Jay Cutler even. He doesn't have that cannon arm that guys like that do. But everything else is there. Like,
Sorry, did you throw Jay Cutler in the list of
Jay
those
Cutler
names?
has
Jay
one of the
Cutler
strongest arms in NFL history.
history, yeah.
Okay, I thought you were talking about like.
No,
They
I'm
did-
just talking about
Level.
pure arm strength.
They didn't name
Okay,
him
okay.
like the nickname Smoking Jay wasn't just because he's like it was a smoker. Dude had a cannon. Was one of the original like blaze throwers. Like what we would consider like Josh Allen and Pat now. All right, David.
Jay Cutler was beyond my time.
Yeah. Way before. David, you still here?
Yeah,
Anyway,
one
I
second.
got a little bit more to say on Bryce.
Okay, go ahead.
So, again, there are quarterbacks that have been undersized, but this just feels like undersized that we haven't seen before. So Bryce has got a lot of pressure
Kyler.
on. Okay, again, I don't consider Kyler super successful.
Kyler got drafted number 1 overall though.
Kyler's one of the 10 or 12 best quarterbacks in football.
Well, yeah, I could say that, but
It's not his fault. He got stuck with a horrid head coach that had no idea what he was doing. But anyways, continue.
yeah, I feel like, and I like Bryce in the way that, from a lot of Bama fans that I know, people say that they have one of the worst offensive coordinators. So, I mean, I don't know if I could say that true because I don't watch Bama enough
I like Bill
to.
O'Brien. I don't think
Bill
Bill
O'Brien.
O'Brien's that
People say
bad.
Bill O'Brien sucks.
He
He
wasn't
sucked in the
great.
NFL, but he was pretty solid in college.
Yeah, I don't mind Bill O'Brien.
So I don't really know much about Bryce Young,
I could get why some
besides
fans would
the
say
fact
that
that
though. I,
the history of Alabama quarterbacks aren't really great. But like David said earlier, you scout the player, not the uniform.
Mhm.
well,
So
a lot of that has to do like some guys that have played for Bama weren't meant to play in the NFL. Like you get guys like Blake Sims and Jake Coker, who weren't meant to be NFL guys that were meant to succeed in college under Saban. Then you get guys like AJ McCarron, who I still stand by to this day would have been a good NFL quarterback given the opportunity to start somewhere. And then
Eh,
and then you get a guy like Jalen Hurts, who is the success story. Then
yeah.
you want to really go back the first ever Super Bowl just for a little it shows my NFL knowledge. First ever Super Bowl was won by a Alabama quarterback in Bart Starr. So
Art Starr went to Bama.
yeah,
Never knew that. Never knew that. Yeah, no, I mean that's more of a product of Bama being a defensive school more than anything else. You know, Nick Saban's a defensive guy all the way. Bama's always going to be contending because they're always going to have the best defense in the nation. This year that wasn't the case. We saw obviously, but typically speaking, Bama's strengths it's not their quarterbacks. But that being said, Bryce Young, in my opinion, is far and away the best quarterback in this class. I don't think there's much debate for it. I
and
don't care how small he is. Everything else is perfect.
and we're gonna get to because for months, me and Valente went back and forth on who was better, Stroud or Bryce. Because for months, for me, Bryce was the number one undisputed number one quarterback in the class. And I still think that it's closer with who I have at 1 and 3 than it's Stroud at 2. But this list wasn't purely mine, and the prospect videos we do aren't purely mine, so we have to kind of negotiate
Right, of
mine and
course.
his choices. So I do think though that the combine performed by the guy we have at number 1 in Anthony Richardson was one up there with the best combine performances ever seen and put him on an entirely new level than what I had viewed him before the combine. I don't know if that's fair to say, but that's from my perspective. That put him on an entirely new level as far as like a physical athlete.
Right.
And I think because the combine, this is one thing a lot of people don't understand. The combine really doesn't test like your ability as a football player because you're not really in a competitive situation. You're more being tested off of like physicals and your physical ability. And I don't think right now that there's an athlete that has come out besides probably Cam, which is kind of weird because that's my comparison for Anthony Richardson. Besides Cam, that was able to show like that big of like the physical presence from Anthony Richardson is amazing. But we'll get to that when we get there, and that's why I don't have Bryce at 1, is because I think Richardson his upside is massive, especially in the new era of the NFL.
I mean, sure, but I think Bryce Young still has higher upside because of all of the traits being there already, and all he can do is improve upon them. Where Richardson, I don't want to say has to start from scratch, but he's a lot closer to the floor than Bryce is.
I would
no,
agree with.
I think Anthony Richardson. I don't know if we're talking about Anthony Richardson, but I think Anthony Richardson's like floor is really low. I
Anthony
think that
Richardson's floor is like being Taysom Hill somewhere.
yeah, that's kind of what I think. And I think that he lacks some things. Obviously, the combine blows everybody away, but that those are just numbers. We've already known that he's. Uh, I'm not gonna say a generational talent, but a generational athlete, I guess you could say. He's got, you know, he's got those numbers that look almost perfect for a guy his size, but
Right.
it's just
Two
him
forty
as a
four is
passer.
wild at quarterback, by the way. Like
Mhm.
Yeah,
that's
him being as
insane.
fast as he is too.
Like dude's Derrick Henry size,
Yeah.
and that's like wild. But anyway, let's get into CJ Stroud. We
Before
can't
we move on to Stroud, hold on. I got my fictional comp for
Bryce.
Bryce Young. I want to throw out. In my opinion, this is one of my most accurate ones. I know you guys said you aren't big DC guys, but Tim
Too
Drake,
boring.
who was the third Robin, is Bryce Young to a T. They're both little guys. They're not big or physically imposing whatsoever, but they're both very articulate. They're both incredibly intelligent, and they're both considered by many to be, but both with Tim Drake's standpoint, both in universe and among fans, to be the best version of what they are. Like Bryce Young is the best quarterback prospect. Tim Drake is the best Robin. Not in the sense that like he's the best out of the characters that have been Robin, just the best at being Robin. So I think he compares incredibly similar to Tim Drake. I think that's a great comparison,
And
personally.
also, I'm also going to throw this out with bringing up like Alabama quarterbacks not being successful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's completely while the injuries and stuff have like sustained. I don't think it's completely unfair to say Tua is like written off as a failure right now either.
Yeah, no, Tua hasn't been written off by any means. He still has a chance to be a pretty damn good quarterback. He looked
Wait,
pretty good last year.
can I ask what your SAT scores were, bro? Cause I keep hearing these articulate, intelligent,
I didn't have
these
to take the
words.
SAT because of COVID. I
Oh,
actually, yeah, my college didn't require the SAT, so I didn't take them.
wow.
But I was
Well,
always a big fan of English, and I like big words. So
I got like a oh Jesus, what did I get? Mine
was
was in like the 20 something. 20,
okay.
22.
I'm a senior and I haven't taken my ACT. Thanks, COVID. Um,
I think 22, something like that. Maybe
Yeah,
19.
the college
19.
I'm attending, when I was coming out, they waived the necessity of SAT scores because of, how many people were getting sick the weekend they were holding SATs and how hard it was to get people, within a confined room to be able to take them. And if they did it online, people would have found ways to cheat and whatnot. So they just waived it for like a 2-year period. So I never had to take them, thankfully.
So we're gonna go ahead and get into Stroud, Mister Valente's golden child. Go ahead and talk all about Mister CJ Stroud. I'm even
look,
gonna let you list the stuff we have on the
ever
slide. Go ahead.
ever since week one, or probably before week one of college football, my first words were C.J. Stroud, Heisman. I thought that was gonna be, but it wasn't. Caleb Williams.
Who
That's
we will be
generational
talk,
talent right there.
who we will be
That's
talking a
generational
lot
talent.
about
Anyway,
around this time next year. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw that out there. I don't know if me and David or any of us will still be like talking about prospects and stuff then, but Caleb Williams is very much going to be in the conversation for
he will
somebody.
be undisputed number one for everybody. I guarantee it.
Now, people make a
But
reason for Drake to be above him. Somebody will make something.
let's be fair. The season hasn't started yet, so we got to see what goes on there
Yeah,
first.
so let's focus on quarterbacks that are actually going to get drafted, not guys that haven't made a case yet.
Yeah. Anyway, CJ Stroud, 6'3", 214, played really well in the semifinal against Georgia, which is arguably the best defense in the country. So, seeing that is definitely like a kind of reassurance that he's that guy and isn't phased by normal pressure. You worded this very weirdly that I'm trying to figure out how to say it myself.
Is it
I think he's
phrased?
trying to say he performs well under pressure, like with the weight being on his shoulders and whatnot in prime time and things like that.
Yeah. Is it phased of the normal
Hey,
pressure of the quarterback position?
Because quarterbacks have a lot of weight on their shoulders. I think he's trying to say that
As
that kind
being,
of stuff doesn't phase him.
yeah, as being
in my
like the.
eyes, I don't think that Georgia game was on him. Really, I think he did everything that he could have possibly done that game
That's what I
to the
said.
to the best of his ability. Like I feel like there was nothing that he could have done better that game. I feel like when you're shooting out with Georgia, it was a shootout, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're shooting out with Georgia, y- especially when you're having to challenge the offense of Georgia, when that's not usually what you see. It's usually a close to shutout with Georgia. Georgia's always dominating. So when you see Georgia having to be super aggressive on offense and shoot out back and forth, it kind of raises the question that can CJ Stroud showed that he's able to play against top defenses in college, but can that translate? And I believe it can.
But that is why
NFL comp.
that's why I was very high on how he played against UGA in the semifinals. I thought he played exceptionally well against UGA. I wasn't a guy that was very high on Stroud throughout the regular season either, but I have to admit he played very well in the in the semifinals. David, you got anything to add to the CJ Stroud?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, Stroud has the highest floor out of any of the prospects in this class, I think, in terms of his baseline and what he's working off of, both in terms of mechanics and accuracy and athleticism. You know, he's got a great baseline to go off of. His arm's also pretty solid. He's got good touch from a clean pocket. Um, he's always in sync with his receivers, really good on those like precise timing routes. But Young is such a weird prospect to me because he was, I'm sorry, incredibly inconsistent his final year at Ohio State. And, there were a lot of issues with pressure, a lot of issues with his patience, a lot of issues with his decision making when teams were sending blitzes at him. And he's not great at throwing with anticipation by any means. So I don't know. Stroud's a weird one for me. I will say one of the big things with him that really stands out to me going back to the pressure point is that, he's another guy that as soon as he feels any pressure, he's dipping from a pocket. Like he's dipping. There's no shot he's going to sit and try to make a throw under pressure or try to manipulate the pocket. He just can't do it. And he also seems sort of shy to use his athleticism, which is really weird. Like he has the ability to make plays with his legs and to extend plays, but he almost seems unwilling to do it. And I don't know what the cause of that is. Maybe it's an Ohio State thing. As we saw, Justin Fields wasn't exactly the most run-heavy quarterback in college, and then he came to the NFL, and now he's breaking rushing records. So maybe it's more of an Ohio State thing. But I don't know. I like Stroud. I think my comp's a little more conservative than you guys have him at, though. You guys have him at Justin Herbert. I think he's more like if Jared Goff was athletic. Like that's kind of the baseline for him right now. Obviously, he has the potential to be a lot better than that, but that's kind of where I'm at with him.
Yeah, I feel like Ohio State is literally the college of polar opposites, and
Yeah.
by that I mean everything that you see out of a quarterback and or any player rather, and from Ohio State, you're getting the exact opposite when you go to the
I
NFL.
wouldn't say any player.
So
I think it's more of a quarterback issue. I
I
like
mean
Ohio
receivers
State.
too.
Their receivers are
I've
pretty
seen
good. Historically,
yeah,
Ohio
no,
State
I'm
receivers
talking
are pretty
about.
good.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that
Mm,
you're getting a
okay, I got
completely different player in the NFL than you are in college with Ohio State. I feel
gotcha.
like everything that you see on the scouting report for for anybody from Ohio State, you're getting the complete opposite of. Not in a bad way, but you're getting a completely new player. Almost like, for example, Justin Fields, like you said, was um not a run guy or a not a
Run
running
first.
type guy, not a run first type guy in college, and then goes to the Bears and starts breaking rushing records like it's normal.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
And
Sorry. Go
I
ahead.
feel like I feel like going back to older Ohio State, I feel like Michael Thomas back in the national championship year, I felt like he was more uh go go over you and get the ball type deal, and now he's the get get the ball and get down type of receiver. It's kind of
That has to do a
Ohio
lot
State
with
is
age too.
well,
Been
yeah, but he's always kind of been like that though. I think since his rookie year, he's been like that. He's never really been the catch and run type guy. He's always been the catch and get down, which has worked out for him well. But you know,
Huh?
but not the point I'm trying to make. Is the point I'm trying to make is Ohio State is the school of monkey see, not monkey do. I don't know how to. I'm trying to use your metaphors. They're so good.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I think there's too much like I don't like Stroud more than I like Bryce or Richardson. I think that I don't think that he's a better quarterback than either one of them are.
well, I think he's a better quarterback than them right now. I just don't think he quite has the ceiling they do. Like, I think day one, out of all the quarterbacks in the class, CJ Stroud will be the best one. He's the only one other than Levis, like I said, that I think you can trot out as your starter day one and feel pretty okay with it, which apparently seems to be the route Carolina's going for. And if that's the case, he'll win Rookie of the Year next year. But long term, I don't think he has the ceiling that Bryce or Richardson do. I think both of them can be top five quarterbacks, and I think Stroud's more maxed out in the 10 to 15 range.
So you don't think also like a team like Indianapolis or even Houston for that matter might go quarterback and start him week one?
I mean, they can, but I wouldn't recommend it. That's the better way of putting it. I think you can comfortably start Stroud or Levis, but I think ideally you would let Richardson or Young sit on the bench for a year.
I actually this is a totally different like topic for a minute, and I'm sorry if y'all have like something to do and but this is a totally different topic. I actually think that it would be smart for Houston not to go quarterback and maybe go somebody for defense.
See,
Maybe
I can't get behind all that. I know where you're going with that, but
Savon Witherspoon.
I don't like the idea of tanking for next year. Like deciding, on draft night you're tanking. I hate that because, like Valente said earlier, we haven't watched these guys play their final year in college. Things could happen, and they could end up being worse. Like I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but it's definitely within the realm of possibility. And there's no guarantee that your guys are going to want to lose another year. And it's just bad team management. It's bad player management. It's bad planning. I hate that. If you're at the top of the draft and there are good quarterbacks and you need a quarterback, you take the one you like. You don't sit and think, well, there might be one next year that's a little bit better. This isn't Madden. This is real life. You've got timelines. You've got deadlines. You've got jobs on the line, and I don't like that. With all due respect, obviously, I'm not trying to sound disrespectful, but I can't get behind that thought process personally.
the only reason I would even like mention that if they had like a coach that had been there like 2 3 years, I would totally be like, go get your guy now to try to go win, try to save some jobs, right? But they just got D'Amico, and I don't think after one season, even though like some jobs
I was
have
going
been
to say
done like that.
Houston's got a track record of firing head coaches after one season, despite giving them nothing to work with. Miko's a lot better than those coaches, but they've still
Thing
got the
about
track
first
record.
year, thing about first year head coaches is the first year head coaches usually like to go for the quarterback.
Yeah, they want to start
Like
building now, so they
quick
don't have to wait.
example, Urban Meyer, Trevor Lawrence. I think that was
Yeah,
first year,
same year.
first year head coach. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
but they had
There's other examples. We don't have to sit here and list them all off, but
okay. So let's go ahead and get into who I have.
uh, I
Okay,
do want to say real quick another thing. D'Amico's in his first year, but their GM isn't. Their GM, uh, if I'm not mistaken, is in year two, year three. So that's another person whose job is going to be on the line a lot sooner rather than later. So if you have the building blocks now to get your franchise quarterback in place and show the guys up top, like, hey, we have a plan, we just need time to develop it, then they're going to give you more time to do so. But if you're going defense this year and you're like, we'll wait to get a quarterback next year and things don't pan out, then you've dug yourself a deep hole that's going to take you even longer to get out of. Quarterback is the most important position on the field, and you need to be doing whatever you can to ensure you have a franchise quarterback. That's why teams like Chicago are giving up the number 1 overall pick so they can have a receiver. Or, Philadelphia trading their first last year to make sure they could have a receiver so their quarterback was in a good shape. Or we have the Jets right now doing all this big debating with the Packers over what they're going to give up for Aaron Rodgers. Like,
Don't think
quarterback
that's
is
not gonna
important.
happen.
Either way, the negotiations are still happening. The Jets are being aggressive in trying to find a quarterback because that's the only position they don't have. They need a quarterback. They have everything else. The point is, you need to be aggressive in getting a quarterback when you're in position to do so. And I think it would be a huge miss by Houston's front office, despite how good some of the defenders at the top of this class are, to not go out of their way to get a quarterback and ensure that they have somebody to run with. If you run it back with Davis Mills, I'm sorry, you're not a serious organization.
That's yeah. I just I could see the thing is I could see on draft night. I just could close my eyes and imagine Houston selects like Jalen Carter or Houston selects Will Anderson or something
If they
like
take
that.
Will Anderson at 2 over a quarterback, I will laugh my ass off at the Houston Texans organization. That would be a catastrophic miss.
So let's go ahead and get into Anthony Richardson, who we have at
Hold on,
one.
I got my comp for
Okay,
CJ Stroud.
okay,
So this one's a little bit out there and takes a little bit of explaining, but I've got Anakin Skywalker as my comp for CJ Stroud. It's because
okay.
first of all, he's the chosen one, right? He's the one that's supposed to bring balance to the Ohio State quarterback narratives. Obviously, he's not the only one, but him and Fields are currently in a position where people are banking on them being good to change that narrative that Ohio State can't produce quarterbacks. And like I mentioned with Stroud, one of my biggest issues with him is that he sucks under pressure. What happened to Anakin Skywalker as soon as he was under pressure? He fell to the dark side and became Darth Vader. So,
Okay.
for Stroud, I think he compares similarly to Anakin Skywalker.
You're good at this shit.
The Force is
I'm a
good with you,
nerd.
Obi-Wan.
Second teacher for me.
The Force is good in this one, Obi-Wan. Okay. One, we have Anthony Richardson. I have Anthony Richardson from the University of Florida. 6'4", 244, which is absolutely ridiculous. Who is a elite runner and I wouldn't say a great passer, but at least a smart passer. And had an exceptional combine performance. And this is where me and Valente went back and forth, and we just finally said, forget it. We needed to get this slide done, go ahead and get this video done. And we said NFL comp, Josh Allen, which is Valente's comp for Anthony Richardson, while mine is Cam Newton. David, do you have
Yeah,
any? Okay, go ahead,
I
dude.
think the size for Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson are what kind of ticks me off there, or what kind of checks the box. And I would have went with Derrick Henry at quarterback, given that you said it a little bit earlier than you did. If you would have said Derrick Henry before we recorded this, then I would have said Derrick Henry at quarterback.
But if I'm not wrong, Cam's around, at least coming in, was around the same, maybe a little less weight wise, but he was around the same size as Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I think that, like, people have drawn comparisons. Because if you look at some pictures when Cam played at Florida before he transferred, it's kind of weird how similar they look too. It's kind of weird. But
I
David,
need you to elaborate on that.
they look like similar. Like their body types are very similar.
They're built similarly.
Like if there was a side by side picture I saw on Twitter of Anthony Richardson in a Florida jersey and Cam Newton in a Florida jersey standing beside Tim Tebow, and they look like if you just change the hair and the facial hair a little bit, it looks like the same person.
Hmm.
Like build
All
wise.
right. Moving on from that
Okay. Go ahead.
before Cass gets himself in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
where That's why I said elaborate
I
on
know
that.
Valencia was trying to bait you. We're trying to move
No,
on
I
from
wasn't
that.
trying to bait him. If he wouldn't elaborated on that, I would have thought what I would have thought he
All
was in
right,
trouble.
all right. Yeah, I mean, I really like Richardson. He's my QB two. My top three goes Young, Richardson, Stroud. And I think Richardson, in terms of his potential, has, like I said, it's between him and Bryce for the highest ceiling in the class. Obviously, as Cass mentioned, he has that crazy athletic profile. He's really, really good, just running the ball in general. He's a hard runner for a quarterback. He's got really elite change of direction, his speed, his agility, burst, accelerate, whatever you want to say. Any athletic trait you can come up with for a quarterback, it's elite for Richardson. But then you throw into the fact that he not only has the strongest arm in this class by, in my opinion, a country mile, but also will probably have a top 3 to 5 arm in terms of pure strength day one once he's drafted in the NFL. I mean, it's insane what the guy offers. Now, obviously, you're going to talk about the iffy passing profile. He's not quite as raw as a lot of people want to make him out to be. His pre-snap processor is pretty good. He's good at anticipating coverages and reading the leverage of different cornerbacks and defenders. And he's gotten better over each year at Florida, which really stands out to me. Though it's not only each year, but week to week as well. His incremental growth is really, really something that stood out to me when he was at Florida. And his red zone passing is like there are instances where he's making throws that you would see as like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady make, like high level red zone passing. Now, sure, his accuracy isn't the greatest. His pocket presence could use some work. He's got happy feet. His ability to read defenses as a whole isn't perfect, and he doesn't have the most experience. I do believe you let the kid sit for a year in the right type of system, let him go somewhere like Indianapolis with Shane Steichen or Carolina with I'm blanking. I'm completely
Frank Reich.
Matt
blanking.
Rule.
With
I
Frank
know.
Reich, right?
Frank Wright.
With
Oh,
Frank Reich.
Jesus Christ. Matt Rule. Jesus, no.
Yeah. If you send him somewhere that's going to be a QB friendly environment, let him sit for a year behind a veteran. I truly believe Anthony Richardson can be, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, especially with the changes that we're currently witnessing with more athletic quarterbacks being in higher demand. But at the end of the day, he's kind of like, every draft pick is a lottery ticket, right? But Anthony Richardson is quite literally a Powerball ticket where you're either getting the jackpot or wasting, top 5 pick.
So he.
That was the exact representation I wanted to have of him.
Yeah.
NFL comp Powerball ticket. There you go. Or
Yeah,
fictional
Powerball ticket.
comp.
That's what I said.
Fictional comp is a Powerball ticket. Yep.
My fictional comp for him is Michael Vick from Madden 04, the most overpowered quarterback in Madden history, because that's what this guy is. He plays football like a created character in a video game where you jack the athleticism all the way up and score 15 rushing touchdowns a game and then, rage quit and close app and restart when you finally throw an interception.
And like it's. I've just been staring while y'all been talking. I've just been staring at 6'4", 250. There's no way a quarterback. Oh, dude, do you understand what it's going to be like if a quarterback, like when a quarterback starts in the NFL? Say for example, he goes to a team that has a power running back, a power option rushing game with a quarterback that's 6'4", 250, and a running back that's say like 6'3", 230. Dude, def- business decisions. That's all I gotta say. There's gonna be some business decisions. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this
I got
video.
one thing to say though. One thing to
Okay.
say. One quick thing. One quick thing. I'm calling it now. Anthony Richardson is going to be the first of the Derrick Henry generation quarterbacks, and by that I mean built and the athletic profile that he presents and the build that he has. Anthony Richardson is going to start the generation of Derrick Henry quarterbacks.
I don't know what you mean by that, but I can kind of understand what you're saying. With seeing the success Richardson has, because success of college and NFL players is what really judges positions. Like when you go and like getting to college and like getting through like the high school ranks and stuff. Like if you're a guy that's like 6'4", or like a guy that's like 6'2", 6'3", and you're like 230 pounds, normally they're like, nah, no quarterback for you. You're a running back, or you're a receiver, or you're some defense, you're a linebacker. But now with seeing like the success Richardson has had, if you have the athleticism, you could play quarterback. But it's all just a bunch of speculation. So let's go ahead, wrap this video up. This has been your boy Cass. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you really liked it, subscribe. But above all else, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. That's Valente. His link is going to be in the description of this video. And that is David. David, if you want to plug your socials right now, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, you can check me out at either Miller Football or Miller Football _ on pretty much every platform: Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all that good stuff. I'm all over the place.
Okay. And the next prospect video, me and Valencia are gonna mix it up. We're not gonna do specifically one position. We're probably gonna do defensive line as a whole, and then we're gonna do secondary as a whole after that. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.
Tell them boys to tighten up, tighten up.
Let me hear you say it.
Whole city getting hype now. Tell them boys to tighten up, tighten up.
Let me hear you say it.
Need